Hey everybody, welcome back for another one of our San Diego Comic-Con 2017 prep videos. This time we're talking about the Hasbro booth and Hasbro exclusives and just kind of the process for all of that. First up top, as with all of our prep videos, major disclaimer, just things change. So much, if you've watched kind of our general overviews or listened to our podcast talking about San Diego Comic-Con, so much of my opinion, at least on how the con works, is just having to be really dynamic and switch things up. Going to go over things, what history has shown over the last few years. Definitely this is more of a guide for newbies than veterans. I mean, if you're a veteran, you probably can do your own video of like this. But we do these, we find that people find them helpful. Even sometimes veteran people say they're helpful just to kind of remind them of some things. So we keep notes every year, we add to it. And then one thing really that's big for us is just aggregating all of the information that comes in. So over the last several years, we've gotten tons of people, whether it's on Facebook, Twitter, wherever, kind of giving us messages and telling us what their experiences were. So we'll kind of share some of those things as well, because things can change from security personnel to volunteer to volunteer, from staff member to staff member working at the Hasbro booth and in any of these different places. And so, want to try and give as full of a picture as possible of how things have worked at Hasbro and give some advice from that. So over the years, Hasbro has been really our #1 target when it comes to exclusives. It's usually attracts me most every single year coming into Comic-Con. I hope that they won't have anything I want, and then every year they have something that I want, and sometimes they have a lot of things that I want, and it just depends. Our philosophy really with all of the exclusives, swag, whatever it is if it's not much, if the time investment is going to be way too much, then maybe we'll just wait out the con and pick it up, save some of the money from the convention and pick it up on eBay. Yeah, it'll have a marked up price, but if we wait till, November, December, when things cool off after Comic-Con, a lot of times you can pick up some deals. Not on everything. Definitely some things just escalate in price, and so, kind of have to play that by ear. But that said, pretty much our history, at least since I'd say about 2010, has been definitely participating in the madness that is the Hasbro exclusive booth, and so we do have the last 6 years or so of experience there. Do remember also that any sort of exclusive that is announced can really change things up quite a bit. So this year, we have things like Luke's Land Speeder, we know the Thor Marvel Legends set that's been announced, G.I. Joe Transformers, we've heard some as of this recording, nothing if there'll be a Magic set, nothing if there'll be a figure going with Last Jedi, My Little Pony, etc. And so some of these things can really change the course of the way the booth, the booth is always madness when you come to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but sometimes it's more madness than others. And so, for example, last year they announced Jyn Erso, the Black Series figure right here, just the day of preview night, I believe it was that morning. So, keep your ears open. Things can perk up at any time, regardless. So you're expecting a really competitive battle to get those items. So the rest of the video is really divided up into 3 parts. We're going to talk a little bit about choosing the day, of deciding what day you're going to go for your Hasbro items. 2, the actual process of getting a ticket and how that works. And then once you have your ticket, what happens next in terms of actually getting the item. So in terms of talking about the days to pick, we've been pretty consistent over the last few years on this feeling of, for us, Friday is kind of the target day. Now, again, this can change, panels even play into it. What's going on in the panel rooms can, bring more looky-loos into the Hasbro line or not, depending on how exciting or dead it might be in some of those panel rooms. But in general, preview night and Thursday are really packed to the gills with people that are, they need their stuff. They're afraid it's going to run out. Everybody wants to get it out of the way. We want to get it out of the way too. There was one year that we managed to get our stuff on preview night, and it was just a dumb luck thing. And if you've watched our videos, we've talked about in the past, but basically going to line up for the Hallmark line, and they just moved the Hasbro line over there. And so all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're in the Hasbro line. And it wasn't anything we sought out. But that said, those nights also, the friends of exhibitors, people buying for exhibitors, is all filled up on Wednesdays and Thursdays as well. And so not that totally dies off at any point during the con, but it just brings a little bit extra of madness in there. Now, a few reports that we got, and again, mileage may vary, but one of the things last year on preview night, we had several people that had professional or had press badges that also said they weren't allowed to buy on preview night. So maybe you have one of those badges and had no problem preview night, but we did get that from a few people, and we were only sharing things that we got from at least 3 or 4 different sources or tweets or whatever that came in, that information. Also, we heard from several people, and this has been consistent over the years, that even if they were in the first 20 people in line for the floor, up over like Hall H or in the back in sales, that they didn't make it to the booth in time. I mean, the line is usually capped pretty much immediately. Sometimes they'll give tickets out on the floor in the back, but either way, it's really difficult to get it to it without it being an exhibitor's friend that flipped their badge around or things like that. So it's really, really difficult to mess with preview night. We definitely recommend not, unless you can just kind of dumb luck your way into it. But otherwise, spend that time having fun, gathering up other exclusives or gathering up other fun swag things. I mean, that's really our most fun for that night, is just kind of running around the floor, getting a good feel for where everything is laid out, what kind of things are being given away, even if we don't get any of them, to know to pursue. So that might be where we hear, oh, Anchor Bay is giving away these cool Walking Dead bags. Okay, well, we didn't get it preview night, but we know we're going to come back. Or, oh, Mattel's going to have this signing, so we're going to come back and try and get that, and those types of things. Now, on Thursday last year, the reports that we got were people that lined up at 9 p.m., their tickets were about for noon. And I'm talking about 9 p.m. the night before. So preview night, they basically left preview night. They got in line for the next day. When they drew their Hasbro ticket, they got around a 12 p.m. time. So if this is your very first time attacking the Hasbro booth, it's important to know that you will get a timed entry. And that can vary of what is still in stock, because they will run out of items as the day progresses and as the con progresses. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to looking at how you pick up your items and all of that. But so the 9 p.m. people should have been in good shape. If you did sleep out, if you did camp out preview night, then yeah, you got a good time, you're set. Those people that got in line around 4 a.m. seem to get around 4 p.m. tickets. And so 4 p.m. tickets, it's pretty risky of what is still in stock individually by items there. So also on Thursday, to note, all of the Star Wars and Marvel Legends were gone by 3 p.m. that day. So the daily allotment, not for the entire con, but for that day, they were sold out for Star Wars and Marvel Legends. So for myself, if I would have gotten in line at 4 a.m., I basically wouldn't have gotten what I wanted that day. Now, there's been varying results about following up the next day. So in the past, we haven't had problems many times of saying, okay, we had our Thursday ticket, let's pretend we didn't get one of our items, our Obi-Wan Kenobi. We come back the next day and we're able to get in line because it's after that time. We've not bought anything in that limit or whatever on that one, and we've not had problems. That said, we've had a lot of people tell us that that hasn't worked for them. So last year we heard both accounts, that Hasbro sometimes said no way, and Hasbro said sometimes come on in. We'll get a little bit more to that in terms of just kind of that swirling vortex of humanity that's going to be circling the Hasbro booth and kind of how that plays into things. The Soundwave and the Magic the Gathering cards were gone by 4 p.m. And then by 5 p.m., you could walk up without a ticket on Thursday. So 5 p.m., they still had items. It was just, did they have the items that you wanted by that time? And in general, I think the Hasbro booth always has cool stuff. They always have decent stuff. It's just a matter, do they have what you want? If you're okay with waiting till Sunday, they'll definitely have stuff there, and most likely it's very unlikely you'll need a ticket for entry. You could probably just cruise right in there at any point on Sunday. And maybe some years they have tons of Marvel Legends sitting around, some years they don't. Something like Star Wars usually is not going to be there. If they do a Last Jedi figure, I'm sure that'll be one of the first things to sell out. So you just kind of got to weigh for yourself what the value of it is there. So in terms of the days, again, we normally suggest Friday. That's kind of still our target. We feel like a lot of people get it out of the way then, but there is definitely a sense of desperation on Friday because people know things may be sold out by Saturday, and so it's very understandable why some people are like, nah, forget that. I'd rather camp out, take care of it Thursday or Wednesday or whatever. So your call, but again, our recommendation, Friday. Then in terms of the process of getting a ticket, so whenever you do decide to line up, and let's say it's going to be Friday morning, if it's before 6 a.m. normally, there's 2 lines, and there should be 2 lines outside the convention center, and we'll go into more about lines in a whole separate video, just about the entire exhibit floor and lines and all of those things. Also over at SDCCblog.com, they have a great article on where to line up. But generally speaking, they've got 2 lines. There's the Hall H line and there's the Everything Else line. Obviously for Hasbro, you're in the Everything Else line. So you're lined up maybe on the back side of sales, something like that. You're going to weave your way into the convention center when they finally let you in, and then you're going to go up the escalator into sales, and you're going to break off and make a left, and over there should be signage. You know, you can always ask people as you go, but in general, to the left there will be the Hasbro ticket distribution, and you'll line up somewhere. It may be back going down the backside of the marina. Remember, no one's supposed to be allowed the backside of the marina. Do people cheat and come that way sometimes? Yes, they definitely do. Every year we get tweets in the morning of people angered by people jumping the line in the back. it is what it is. It happens every year. Staff tries to prevent it, but you know, things happen. I've never seen it, so I don't know exactly how it does happen, but it does happen that people do jump the line sometimes. So in general, you line up, you make your way up the escalator, you make your way back to sales, you get in line. When you get to the front of the line, you'll get a ticket, and it'll be a timed entry. So it'll say, you know, 11 a.m., 1 p.m. And then the thing is, it's a waiting game until then. You've got your ticket in hand. Now, what's really nice about the Hasbro distribution is it should be done well in time for you to still go and enjoy the floor that morning. So usually when we're waiting for that Hasbro ticket, we get our ticket, then we run over and get in line for the floor, and then we'll go and, you know, grab some freebies or try and aim at some other exclusives. So it's kind of like killing two birds with one stone there, which is really nice. If you're willing to put in the time and get up early for these things, a lot of times you're able to do more than just one. So now with that ticket in mind, moving to our next category of actually getting the item. So we've got our ticket. It's like a fast pass if we're using Disney terminology to go and move into line, although it's not really a fast pass. It's just kind of your whole lifeline pass. It's the only way to get in line, right? Well, there's an exception to that now. So let's talk about that. You make your way to the booth 5-10 minutes before the time. I mean, you can always check before, because at the end of the day, if you watched our swag video, it's the same principles for the Hasbro staff. They just want to sell everything and be done. So they want to do it as equitably as possible. They don't want to get yelled at. They want to do a good job. Ideally, they would love every person to get the exclusives they want. I mean, if you think again about the psychology of the person manning the front of the line, and kind of being the guardian of who gets in and who doesn't get in, they don't want to hassle with anyone. It's not, they don't want to, you know, help pack up a giant truck of stuff to bring back. Everybody's just trying to follow the rules and do the best job they can. So that being said, though, if there's points, let's say we have a 1 p.m. time, and theoretically no one with a 1 p.m. time shows up, and all of a sudden the queue is half empty. They're going to let people just get in line, or they're maybe going to let somebody with a 3 p.m. time get in line. So you'll notice there's kind of like this swirling vortex of humanity always making their way around the Hasbro booth. Well, they're moving because the fire marshals and security tell them you got to keep moving. You can't just stand there and wait to bum rush to the front of the line or to enter the line. But they keep moving because they're waiting for that opportunity where maybe the line dies down a little bit because people are lagging. Don't be one of those people lagging. Whatever your time is, make sure that you're there and you're ready to go. Now, prior to that, a good thing in terms of getting your items is if you showed up, you know, let's say Wednesday night, if you did wait till Friday or Thursday to mess around, go and grab the sheets. Now, these are the sheets. I always grab 2 of them at least. And so these sheets are basically telling you what are the limits and the price. Price includes tax on these. The limits and the price on each of these items. So as I'm looking at this, the Marvel Collector's Vault, it's $76. There's a limit 2 on that. G.I. Joe crossover set, $108, limit 1. So with this, I kind of keep one as like my rough draft, and the other one that's going to be my final draft that I turn in, my essay for final credit. And so with my rough draft, once I have it, then I start talking to people that I know are also interested in Hasbro, my friends that are going to be at the con. Is there anything they're looking for? Now, if I want that G.I. Joe Transformer set and it's limit 1, well, that's off the table, because if I get in line, I'm getting it for myself, obviously. But something like the Marvel Collector's Vault, if I can get 2 and someone else wants it, then I'll go ahead and buy the second one for them and they can give me the cash. Or who knows, maybe I'll end up trading it to them. They got something at Funko. Over the years, I've still never gone through a few of the booths, Funko being one, Bandai being another one, but we've gotten items from sometimes just through trade or a friend being able to purchase that decided they weren't interested in the item or things like that. So knowing what the limits are is always a really nice thing, and we never know. We can always guess, but we never really know for sure till we have this paper in hand. So once you get this rough draft filled out, then that way when you show up, you're able to start making final decisions. You've got it set and you transfer it over to your other copy. Now, that being said, the reason why it might need to be a draft form, because you might show up, I'm not sure how easily this shows up, but you'll see there's some like black mark X's on items. So this is from 2013. So this was at some point, I think on Saturday, they were out of the Transformer, out of the G.I. Joe Transformer cross set, out of the My Little Pony, and out of the Boba Fett Black series. So if you show up and something is marked off here or up on the board, it'll say sold out. If it says that, then you know you have to kind of change your form. And so I just like having a clean form to be able to do that while I'm there. Let's see, people try, oh yeah. So now with our final draft in hand, ready to purchase, we sit and slowly make our way through that queue, really hoping nothing sells out. I think everybody that's been in the Hasbro line must have that feeling, or maybe it's just me, but every time I'm in that line, even if I see 20 boxes, 50 boxes of something, and I know it's limit 1 and there's 5 people in front of me, until they put it in my bag in front of me, I'm worried that it's going to somehow miraculously, be sold out. We've had situations where we've been at the counter and something was sold out, and then it came back into stock while we were there. And you might say, well, how does that happen? Well, they have their allotments. They've got kind of their front line stuff. They've got runners always bringing stuff in, but there's some stuff that's just removed and it's off on the truck and it's not going to make its way in. So that's what happened last year on Thursday when many of those items sold out halfway through the day. They showed back up Friday because they weren't out of the items for the show. They were just out for that day. But sometimes, they find another case of something and it shows up, and that was the case for us. It was, I believe, a Marvel Legends. It was that X-Force series one with the Archangel. It was one I really wanted to check out, and it was just gone. And then as we're in the process of paying, it's like it shows up again. It's like, okay, let's add that back in. So having that, again, that might be what changes this. The other thing to be ready, and can be really intimidating for people that are new to Comic-Con, is there will be people surrounding you, most likely, either outside in the line, that swirling vortex of humanity, or in line with you, that are going to ask you to buy things for them. And I don't think I've ever been in the Hasbro line and not had at least 2 or 3 people ask me to buy things for them. And obviously that's your call. I mean, it could just, could be just helping a collector out, or you could be, buying something for somebody that's going to walk, and sell it a few minutes later for a big profit. It's really up to you with that. I would just suggest knowing before you go in what you decide. My personal philosophy is I'm only buying for people that I know. That's it. I'm only buying for people I know. If somebody's outside the line, if somebody's in the line, it's not to be rude. I don't know. I just don't want to get involved with anything that could be a shady dealing. So I buy for people I know. If somebody wants a My Little Pony exclusive and we're not getting it for somebody that we know already, fine. Then, that's a friend. We'll get it for them and trade it or whatever later. And sometimes we do get a couple extra items to just trade. We know Marvel Legends is often something people really want, or a Star Wars thing. We have a lot of friends that are into that. And so we might go with a second one or a third one or whatever the limit is, just because we know somebody's going to want it out of our group of people. Maybe it's somebody that can't even come to Comic-Con, somebody that we're going to talk to when we get back home that will be able to get it for them. So again, your call, but just be aware of it, because I've definitely seen kind of a deer in the headlights look sometimes from new people that I've met at the show. Now that really leads to then the last category. Actually, before that, credit cards versus cash. Make a decision ahead of time. We've tweeted out before many times over the years, but cards often have issues, especially in the Hasbro line, it seems, where your company will tag it for fraud. Some companies will make a note or say they make a note and it doesn't matter and you still have that issue. Nobody likes to carry a lot of cash though, so it really depends how much you're going to buy. But either way, have a plan, have the number on speed dial, just be ready, and don't be embarrassed. Don't worry about if it happens, because it happens all the time to people. I remember the first year that it happened to us, and it's like, what? And they're like, yeah, this happens all the time. And I've heard it over the years many, many times on social media. Every time we tweet that, warning out in our SDCC tips, somebody chimes in and says, I even called my company and it still happened to me. So know that. Last thing then, in terms of actually getting the items then, before some closing up thoughts. Once you get your items, regardless, you're getting this giant bag, unless you just totally tell them you don't want any bags, maybe you just got one tiny thing. But for the most part, everybody's getting these giant bags. And to put in perspective how giant these bags are, this is a WB bag inside of it that you couldn't see at all. It'll fit about 8 of these WB bags filled with stuff inside of it. So depending on your stature, depending how much you can lift, be ready to have some friends help carry you out, or carry it out, I should say, maybe carry you out too. But the term I always use is being shipwrecked. And I always see people at the Hasbro booth, Mattel it happens sometimes too, but being shipwrecked, meaning that they've got like 5 bags, all sorts of awesome stuff that they bought for themselves and their friends or whatever, and now they're stuck there and they can't move because the bags are too much for them to carry, and they're just stuck there in the aisle, and you've got people circling, again, that vortex of humanity, and you're like, is somebody gonna grab my bag? I'm gonna get my stuff stolen. Make sure you have a friend, make sure you have a companion, make sure you have a line buddy. If you don't know anyone going to Comic-Con this year, make a line buddy as you're getting ready to get in that Hasbro line or something and say, hey, I'll help, even if there are a few people in front of you in line, hey, do you mind helping me carry my stuff? I'll help you, like, let's stick together. But just something so you're not all by yourself with that giant bag. Okay, so last thoughts. One of the things you've heard probably several times, including right now with a line buddy, is the importance of having people that you can talk to at Comic-Con. Again, not necessary to go into Comic-Con knowing anyone, but somewhere via social media as you're at the con, making friends there. We have on our Facebook page, you head over to Parks and Cons, we have a SDCC 2017 attendee group. Just ask to join and then we'll click the approve button and you can join the group. There's tons of people in there making plans of going to see Conan and what they're doing with Ballroom 20 and all these things. You could jump on there and say, hey, it's my first year at Comic-Con, or this year I'm going by myself. Anybody going to do the Hasbro line? Can we meet up and can we work together? Or, hey, there's one thing at Hasbro I really want. I'm not going to mess with it, but I am going to do Funko and I'm going to make sure to get my pops. Anybody willing to trade something, you know? And those types of conversations can help ease the stress a lot and give you some backing. Last year, it's really been 2 years in a row that we were helped so much by people being very kind or thoughtful and saying, hey, I'm in line for this. Do you need any help with that? Or people seeing that we got something and saying, hey, I really want one of those. You know, would you mind trading it for anything? And we connected with some. Some were just followers on Twitter that we never met before. And we communicated there and it was like, well, we had this thing and they have this thing. And so, okay, do you want to meet up at 3 over here and trade these things? And it worked fine that way. But others are people that we actually know. Like, you know, that's obviously the best, is people that you can consider friends because you know you can fully trust the system. And you know, those people that you trade with sometimes may become friends later on. You know, they might just be trade partners or line buddies at Comic-Con. But Comic-Con history, personal history for people, is filled with people that didn't know each other till Comic-Con, until a common interest brought them together, and then they left the con being, you know, lifelong friends, or at least as long as they've lived to this point, friends. And so I know we have definitely been the recipients of a lot of goodwill, a lot of good friendships that we've made. Back in 2007, 2008, we weren't doing a video like this, but if we were, it wouldn't have even crossed my mind to bring that up. I was very much of the opinion that, you know, you go, you do your thing, you have your plan, you'll be fine. And I think that actually did work pretty well back in those days. But now, one, I've learned it's a lot more fun to have friends at the con. And so I really like that. There's a lot of people that go to the convention that I look forward to seeing, and it's great to catch up with them there. But two, it's almost essential. You know, as much as we've done all these different things with swag and exclusives, I feel like the landscape that it is now, that it is so competitive, you almost have to have those people if you really want to not have a totally stressful time, but have a good time and still get some of the items that you want. So last item, I closed out with this topic. I think it was the first time I ever did that last year's Hasbro video. I'm doing it again this year. Is just the thing that comes to mind more and more outside of the social, of the importance of the social side of things at Comic-Con, and Hasbro in particular here on this topic, is the weighing of, do I really need this and what is it worth to me? You know, so if we look at something like a Jyn Erso that went for, what was it at the con? So it was $27. It was selling pretty quickly on eBay for $60, $70. I think it got up to $100 during the con, and then it dipped way down after it. It's last I found it a couple times going for in the 20s and 30s. You know, so something like that where we know it's a reissue that they're going to put out again. It's not going to have the same cool packaging, but is it really worth it? Is it something, you know? Now, in our case, we go to a lot of conventions, so we have a lot more opportunities than some people to find these things too. Is we stumble by a booth at a convention that they didn't do real great on a Sunday, and they just want to get rid of it, so they have it marked $25 because they just are looking to make some money that day. Not everybody has that luxury. Some people are going to be stuck just with eBay, and so you can always do, though, ended listing searches on eBay, and I would suggest doing that as you start to make your exclusive plan for anything, not just Hasbro, and look, what are the patterns of this company? Is this a company that normally I'm able to find these things a year later, 6 months later, at a much better price? Because in the end, let's just pretend the lowest Jyn Erso ever went is $50. If that was the only thing I wanted, and it's a $23 additional cost, I think it's probably worth it for me not even to mess with Hasbro, to get the extra time in line for a panel, or go search for swag, or do a different exclusive. Now, if I want Jyn Erso, and I want the Transformer, and I want the Marvel Legends, and I want the Obi-Wan Kenobi, if I want, you know, 5, 6 things, now it's a different story, obviously, because now it's going to get so prohibitive of cost that I may not be able to do it. But remember, with all these exclusives, they're always super hot in the week of the con and like that month after, and then it fades off for everything. So I know, like for myself, I'm targeting an X-Wing Star Wars Celebration exclusive Black Series figure, and he was around 100 at the con. I mean, aftermarket value, because I didn't go to Star Wars Celebration this year in Orlando. He's been up to 150, 200 bucks right now. I am hoping, may not happen, but I am hoping during all the craziness of Comic-Con season that all the buyers are going to turn their attention towards Comic-Con, and those X-Wing Lukes are going to start to drop in value, and that's maybe when I'm going to swoop in and buy one. Now, in my case, I couldn't go to Star Wars Celebration Orlando, so that's the only option, is the secondary market. But even if I did go to Star Wars Celebration Orlando, and if I couldn't have made it into that line, or I just didn't have the time, I wanted to, you know, sit in the panel rooms instead, it's something to think about, is what is the value of my time? Because the most important currency you have at Comic-Con is time. You spent all this money for a hotel, for tickets, all of these things went into it. Now when you actually show up at the con, food's still going to be expensive, you know, the toys are expensive, everything's expensive. But beyond that, all of that cost that went into your flight or your hotel or your parking or whatever, now what you really have is time. And Comic-Con's a long con when you consider that it's 4.5 days. It's a good sized convention, but at the same time, it is something that flies by. And if you've been to Comic-Con before, you know what I mean. Before you know it, the show's over and it's gone. So you might decide maybe it's not even worth my time, whether it's Hasbro, Funko, or whatever, because there's one or two things I want, and I'm willing to pay the extra $50 or $100 in a month or 6 months. Some people need to have it first. Some people need to have it like that second it comes out. They want it, they need it, they gotta have it. And so you got to kind of evaluate for yourself how important that is. But I do promise, in many cases, prices will be worse in that month right after, and then they'll kind of stabilize, and then, you know, you see where they go. Some things keep escalating, some things fall off, some things stabilize. It's not, you know, none of us have a crystal ball to know for sure, but it is something to consider when you're figuring out how to spend your time. So with that being said, we're going to wrap up our talk here with all things Hasbro. Again, we'll do a separate video that will have just a look at the floor and give more advice there in terms of how to approach the various booths, so watch for that on the YouTube channel. We also have up already our 2017 SDCC tips, our visual guide, as well as our tips on swag hunting is up on the channel as well, so you can find them there. And then we've got one podcast up on Parks and Cons. You can find that there. We've got 2 more in the queue before we get to San Diego Comic-Con. Lots more stuff coming there, and the SDCCblog.com. Remember, all of the exclusives are always best to be found there on the unofficial San Diego Comic-Con blog. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap up here and get ready for Comic-Con. Until next time, we'll see you in line somewhere.